So what was that again?
Hold on. We gotta switch seats.
What?
Because we're doing a different. It's a different week.
Different week.
New week, new us.
And Snob Coffee. Actually, no, it's Church Coffee. I'm not a bigot.
How are we gonna open this one?
We're going to talk about bigots.
Okay. We need a tagline open.
Don't be a bigot.
Welcome back to the second week of Southridge Community Groups. This week we're talking about bigot.
And it's a tough one. At the same time, it wasn't been true with how he said that. He just kind of said, well, this week is a bigot, and I got to explain it. And I think that's important to start off with the explanation, because it's a tough thing to be jumping in on.
Poor guy. So, the definition of a bigot, as provided by Ben in the message, was a person who is utterly intolerant of anything of any differing creed, belief, or opinion. So, utterly intolerant of any differing creed, belief, or opinion. I don't remember exactly where he said he got it from.
Dictionary.com.
Dictionary.com. It was so interesting to see. I think the biggest piece that he painted, the biggest picture there, was just this contrast between a very Western faith that we've had kind of historically, that has had a significant influence in our culture, especially around like legislating the values that we kind of, how we live our lives, right? And so for a while, I mean, obviously the Western culture is built on Judeo-Christian beliefs and values, and we're moving away from that with every passing generation. And so it's really interesting to see, and even in some of the podcasts I listen to and all these things, they're talking about historically when the church couples very closely to the political system and gets very involved in legislating how people live, we almost always see an unchristian nation form out of that and kind of result because of that. And so he did, I think, an excellent job of just talking about what it means as us as Christians now living in this new world where people don't necessarily know that they're built, that society is built on these values anymore. They don't acknowledge it, and they're not interested in it per se. But when you live your life as an authentic Christian, you don't shove it down people's throats, and you're not threatening their perceived liberty and freedom, they seem very drawn to you. And so when I, or not necessarily with me, but when people live that life, just the fullness of living with God, right? And not chained to anything, not following and pursuing and consuming like the rest of the world does. People are drawn to that, and they're interested. They want to know why we're different. And I mean, that's biblical too, obviously, that talks about that in the scriptures of being different, and people will know us because of the way that we love and how we're different. And so it's interesting to see the change of tides right now in our world, and how Christianity is kind of refocusing on not influencing the legislation of righteousness, if you want to call it that, on the rules, but instead trying to just reclaim just being a people group who are different and who intrigue other people.
Yeah. And I think when you think of the word bigot, I actually think of a Westboro Baptist and the whole placards and just making a big commotion over if you don't believe what we believe, then you're just going to hell, and just really going hard after that. And there's zero love in the way that they say they think that they're loving, but they don't really do that. And they're that being known as a Christ follower that way is more detrimental than it would be if you were just living out what Ben was saying, living out who you are. And it really comes back to how we treat non-Christians and how they should live their lives. Because if we say, here's the law, here's the rules of following God, you must obey them without them actually having a relationship with Jesus.
Well, exactly.
Then we've definitely missed the boat on that whole thing. I think the problem. So here's a question for you. So have you been in a situation where you struggled with what to say because you're not sure if you are coming across as a bigot, or if when do you maybe discuss with your groups today, just figuring out is there been a time where you've known someone was doing wrong and maybe they didn't know Jesus? How did you handle that? Did you handle that well, or did you not handle that well? Maybe that's the story that you bring up for that, and so you can discuss in your groups around that question. And you can pause it at any point and then we'll get back into it. Just keep my hand like this. Okay, and we're back.
And I think there's an important distinction there. And Ben also talked about this, where he said this whole label of bigot and not wanting to be a bigot and not confronting the things that are wrong in this world is not an excuse for you to not call out sin for being sin. But that it gets murky when you're in a place where, are they a Christian or aren't they a Christian? How are you interacting with them? And so for you, that might be a bit more clear. For you guys, it might not be as clear. If there's people that are popping up in your head, that might not be as clear. And so I think the thing that I want to challenge you guys, that I think will help as you navigate this thing, is to look at how Jesus lives his life. And I'm really interested in the fact that Jesus treated the non-religious, because there weren't Christians back then, like the non-Jewish, non-religious crowd, very differently than he treated the religious crowd. And so when you look at the life of Jesus in any of the synoptic gospels, and even in John as well, you'll see that he would hang out with people who had sinful lifestyles and who didn't know him, but who were intrigued by him and who were drawn to what he was kind of offering. I guess you could say on the whole marketplace of ideas, they were digging into some of these carnal pieces, and all of a sudden this guy comes by and he was offering them a new way. And I think what's powerful about that is that we're enslaved in this world. And so we are built as worshipers, and we do worship things. No matter who you are, Christian or not, you worship and you are enslaved to something. And so we carry ourselves as slaves to Jesus, and we're his servants, but also co-heirs. And so there's this freedom that comes with that. But it's still, we are worshipers who are bound to something. And people in this world, especially in our Western culture, they consume, and they are taught and pressured into and modeled a life of consumption and a life of slavery to sex and sexuality, and to fulfillment, and to hedonistic tendencies, and to everything that they can find just to put inside of themselves and make them feel better. But it never ends. That cycle, they're actually trapped inside of that. And you go and you look at colleges, and you go and look at all these places, and you see people who are the most free and liberated from all rules, but yet they're so enslaved to things. And then someone like Jesus comes by on the scene in this, in this Middle Eastern world 2,000 years ago. How many years? And all of a sudden, these people who are enslaved differently, but still the same as us, they see someone living a different life, and who's not calling them out and hating on everything wrong that they're doing, but he's showing them something better. So instead of being known for what he's against, he all of a sudden becomes known for what he's for, and this new life that seems more free. And it's fascinating. And so but then you look at how he interacts with the religious people too, and he comes out hard on them. And for sure, there's accountability, and there is calling out of sin and all those things. And so the balance, I think, for us is to look at how Jesus lives his life and identify, and obviously he's God and we're not, so there's things he does that you can't do, but identifying how he treats the different people groups. He didn't set out to start a political revolution. He wasn't concerned with the laws that Caesar was putting in. He wasn't trying to lobby to have the NRA and gun freedom and all that stuff. Not that I'm trying to make political comments, but he wasn't concerned about that stuff. He was concerned about living a life that drew other people to his cause, to what he was doing on this earth, and to him ultimately. And so we I think are called to live a life like Jesus in that way, drawing people in, but then also within our Christian communities, holding each other accountable and calling out sin when sin is sin. And I think that's a hard balance to have, but I think Jesus kind of is the answer that obviously Ben was talking about, but just that whole issue around how do we interact with people like that.
Okay, and now Craig's got a question for you.
Oh gosh, I don't know if I can.
Try it.
I'm not sure if I have the answer for this one.
That's a good place to start.
How do you interact with what I would call a Christian pit bull? Somebody who has teeth. And who has some very strong opinions about their faith that don't necessarily line up with yours, and who might be very political about what they believe, or are very concerned about the fact that this world is going, the classic, the going to hell in a handbasket kind of thing, right? And everyone's sinning, and it was never like this, and all those things. How do you interact with a Christian like that? That's a hard question. I don't even think I have a good answer for that one.
I think it's case by case, but this will be great discussion today.
I was gonna do welcome back to the Southridge community. Don't be a bigot.
The C for church. See, is that right? Is that right way? And then culture would be the backwards, right? Because church is not backwards.
Yeah. This is the right seat. This is the right seat.
Church is forwards. Should be forwards.
Good one, Wes. Dictionary.com. Same dictionary that burned Kylie Jenner.
Google it.
Cut
Don't
that
Google it.
The next community group week.
Are we allowed to point like that? I don't know.
Are we allowed to point like this?
We're pointing to you because we care.
Are those guns?
They're not guns.
They're not real.
They're you and I are friends. That's what it is.
This is guns. This is.
Yeah, no, it's I don't know.
Yeah, well, we don't need to include that
We're not
part.
shooting at you. We're shooting a film, but we're not shooting at you.
We're shooting with you.